Okay, this is video 31 for the final week of History 2204. This week's topic, sort of titled Contemporary Europe, and will take us right up to last week. I talk about what's going on in Cyprus right now. Even there's three sort of units, three parts to this week. The first part is about the fall of the end of the Cold War, fall of the Berlin Wall, the reunification of Europe after Europe had been divided, politically, culturally, socially for, since 1945, for, 45, 50 years. That's the first part. The second part will go from the sort of early 90s again and right up into last week, right up into the current sort of crisis in the Eurozone. And I discuss, a little bit what had happened in Greece and in Italy and Spain, Ireland, some of the bailouts that were needed, and the issues with the euro. And then the last unit is about it's a final sort of summary. There's only 2 pages to read for that, the epilogue in the textbook, and then I talk about sort of where have we been and how possibly where are we going. Okay. This first part, you're going to read in the textbook a little bit. The end of the Cold War, sort of begins maybe in about 1980 or so. This first part talks about the 80s, talks about Reagan and Gorbachev, and again the sort of collapse of the Soviet Union, the fall of the Berlin Wall, the sort of end of communism. You are going to read a couple of chapters in a book. They're very short chapters written by a journalist who was behind the, who grew up in she's originally from Croatia, but she was a journalist, and so she got to travel to England and to the United States before communism ended, and she sort of wrote, sort of little essays. They're not very long. They're 4, 5, 6 pages. I think the longest is 8 or 9 pages. There's again just 4 little short segments, PDFs that I scanned. I tried to find a PDF online and I couldn't, so I had to sort of scan a copy of the book. The book is called Cafe Europa, and it's all about her experiences before communism ends. How when she would go to the West, what she sort of saw, what she experienced. And then about the possible, issues with, making Eastern Europe more Western. They're really good. They're funny, even, and certainly worth reading. And there are a number of questions on the quiz that relate to those readings. It'll certainly be, something worthwhile. I don't, I think hopefully you've sort of seen that. I don't just have you read just because I feel like you should or something like that. I try to make things as, the entire book's about 200 pages. You could read the whole thing. That's fine. It's this book is assigned in classes, sort of Western Civ classes when you talk about the end of the Cold War. But, I sort of went through and found, I think, the 4 best little essays rather than have you read the whole thing. That I think you can get a real sense of what she's sort of saying in those 4 essays. So that's what you will do. And the next video I'll talk about from about 1991, 1992 to, again, 2013.